Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I am here with the My Pleasures book tag. This tag was created by Steve from Steve Partridge, and I will link his original video down below. I was tagged by the fabulous Leah from Leah Hide and Seek, and I will also link her channel down below. Question number 1 is Think, a book that made you think hard. And I am going with Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. This is a historical fiction novel. It's a fictionalized account of the trial of Grace Marks, who was a real person, infamous for a couple of murders that occurred in the 1800s, and the coverage of the trial and Grace's background and her accomplice and all of the conviction and everything about the trial and the murders became this huge media sensation. So this book is a fictionalized account of that time and of that character of Grace Marks, and talks about her early life and the events leading up to the murders, and then the deaths, and then the trial afterwards, and her eventual release after she was acquitted. There's a lot going on in this book, and it's from Grace's perspective, so you have to take pretty much everything with a hefty dose of skepticism, because she is pretty much the definition of an unreliable narrator. And seeing the way that Margaret Atwood uses her story to comment on the justice system and on the treatment of women and all of these other important things, in addition to creating this really spooky environment of, is this woman a cold-blooded killer? Was she clinically insane and the events weren't her fault? Was she in fact a victim who was framed by somebody else? There are just so many possibilities, even completely separate from the events of history. But just Grace as a character in this book, I'm still not 100% sure how I see her or what I think happened. But I definitely thought a lot about blame and responsibility and the criminal justice system, and just a lot of things this book touched on. Number 2 is Love, a book that broke or mended your heart. And I'm going with one that actually did both, and that is Tess of the Road by Rachel Hartman. I have a full spoiler-free review on this book, which I will link down below. It definitely breaks and mends my heart multiple times throughout the book, because Tess, the main character, is so strong and resilient in the face of adversity. She's gone through some truly awful things, but she always comes out the other side, and just her determination in the face of all this suffering is just really beautiful and inspiring. This book made me so emotional, even though it's a very quiet kind of story. I definitely had strong emotional reactions to this book. Number 3 is Eat, a book that nourishes you. And I chose Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This is of course a very well-known modern poetry collection at this point, and I have since seen some kind of reactions to it that it was really overhyped. I went into it kind of at the beginning of that hype, and I found it really powerful and moving. I am not always a fan of modern poetry, but I think I read this collection at the right time for me, and there were so many elements in this that spoke to me, and even the ones that didn't, that were more about the poet's personal experience and things that I couldn't relate to. Even those passages were so evocative that I felt like I had been changed by the way she talked about those things. It sort of filled that need that I had for seeing my own emotions kind of represented in a certain way, while also presenting me with experiences that were not mine and that really spoke to a sense of compassion and a need for understanding and respecting other people's experiences, even if you haven't had them. Number 4 is Laugh, a book that brought a little comic relief. And that one for me is My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. This is a very lighthearted, satirical, historical, fantasy-ish account of the life of Lady Jane Grey, who was Queen of England for only a few days, and her end was unfortunately very tragic. So basically these 3 authors decided they wanted to give her a better story and a happier ending, and I really enjoyed this book. It's so lighthearted and fun and tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also doesn't shy away from some of the darker elements of this time period. It definitely comments on them, and I just really enjoyed this book. Also, just the whole concept of this book and the sequels that will be coming out is just something that really speaks to me, like taking women from history who deserved better and giving it to them. That just speaks to me. I love it. Number 5 is Sex, a book that explores or contains sexuality that doesn't make you cringe. And oh look, it's the Graceling trilogy again by Kristen Kishore. I know I've been talking about this series quite a lot, but I really do think it fit this question better than any of the other books I considered, because it handles sexuality in lots of different ways, and I think it does all of them well. It portrays some of the sexual violence against women and the threat of sexual violence but it also shows loving physical relationships too. There are characters who have a more casual sexual relationship or physical intimacy, and there are characters who don't. There are characters who are monogamous but who don't believe in marriage. There are just so many representations of like physical affection and of romantic affection, and without treating the characters who don't believe in that point of view as being like unenlightened or repressed or anything. I just think that this trilogy does a lot of things right, and one of those things is its portrayal of sex and physical affection and just relationships in general. Number 6 is Rest, a book that gave you peace, reflection, or just calms you down. And for me, that one is The View from Saturday by E.L. Konigsberg. This is a really hard book to explain because you'll hear the synopsis and you'll be like, how can that be an interesting book? Because it's about these 4 kids and a quiz show, like a quiz bowl, and it really just follows them as you get little bits of their lives and see how they like interact with each other and how kind of everything is connected. And basically like you see a question from the quiz bowl and then you get a backstory on why this particular character knows how to answer it. And it's so beautiful and just such a calm, quiet, like witty and warm kind of story, and this is definitely like a comfort food type of read for me. I mean, you can even tell from the cover, just like a little house and like some cups of tea, and not to say that this book doesn't handle some hard issues, because it absolutely does. One of the side characters is disabled and she is sort of dealing with how people treat her as a result of that. And then the 4 main characters, who are all the young contestants in the quiz bowl, come from very different backgrounds, and they're dealing with things like divorce of their parents, or the fact that they've never been seen as the important child of their parents. And just there's so much going on in this book, and it brings me so much comfort and peace, but it still packs a punch, and I love that. And finally, number 7 is Experience, a book that introduced you to a new subject or shifted your perspective. I'm actually going to talk about a play that I saw recently, and that is Good People by David Lindsay Abaire. Now, this play didn't necessarily change my mind about the issue I'm going to talk about. It more like opened my mind to how to express it better. This play really covers a lot of intersectional issues in a really good way. There are themes of racism and poverty and mental health and how all of these things interact with each other. But there's this one line that really, really got to me, and the main character of the play is speaking to somebody else who had basically like gotten out of the bad neighborhood that she had grown up in, and she says to him something like, "Nobody is saying you didn't make hard choices, but not everybody has them." And that just like that blew my mind in its simplicity, but in its importance too, because that's just the perfect expression, I think, of privilege and of how addressing privilege is not taking away people's achievements. Like, nobody's looking at you and saying you didn't work hard or you weren't determined or intelligent. They're just saying not everybody has the opportunity to show determination and intelligence. We should be giving everybody those opportunities to shine. And as somebody who is a hard worker but who has been very privileged to receive certain opportunities, I just think that really was a powerful expression that really made me reevaluate or like remind myself of how lucky some of us are, and how that doesn't, that doesn't negate what some people accomplish, but we really need to open up those opportunities to everybody. I just think it was such a phenomenal play, and I highly recommend you guys seeing it or reading it, because it really did have a powerful effect on my perspective. Okay everybody, so that was the My Pleasures book tag. Thank you so much, Leah, for tagging me. I really had to think about some of those questions. I'm not going to tag anybody this time, but if you see this tag and you'd like to do it, please do it, and say that I tagged you. We'll see you guys soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!